Hello, welcome back. I hope you are starting to feel fired up and a little bit ready. You've let go of all of that stuff that you were carrying around in the internal rucksack, and you are ready to pack your rucksack up with all of the things that are going to help you get to the top of the mountain. But I just want to do a little bit more groundwork before we do that, because I want to introduce a concept to you, a concept that I have been using in the business consulting arena for many a year, so it's nothing new. But my goodness, there are so many people that aren't aware of this, and you need to be. I want to introduce to you my jar of rice. So here in this jar, I have lots of rice, and this rice represents the small stuff. This rice represents all of the stuff that you spend time worrying about, thinking about, and doing that really doesn't serve you. So this rice might be some of the things that you let go of yesterday: the guilt, the shame, the rumination, the worry, the thinking about, oh my God, I've eaten too much, thinking about, oh, I shouldn't have had that glass of wine last night, looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you're horrible, and all of the time that you give to those sorts of activities. It could be thinking about stuff that you can do nothing about, like what a rival business is doing, like what your Auntie Flo is doing, like what your daughter is doing. All of these things you cannot do anything about. You are wasting energy on rice. And the challenge with wasting energy on rice is it doesn't leave much capacity in your day to do other things. Because if you imagine that this jar represents the time that you have awake during the day, if it is filled up with lots of small stuff, there isn't any room for the stuff that you want to achieve. There isn't any room for the stuff that you have to do. This rice could also be stuff that you do that completely waste time. Stuff like binge watching television. Stuff like scrolling for hours and hours on social media. Stuff like procrastinating. I've got a really good rice story. So what happens when I have lots and lots of things to do, and I notice that it is a theme when I have lots and lots of things to do, is I like to get into rice mode and bring myself even more things that I need to do. And a good example of this would be, I had loads and loads of stuff that I needed to do for work, and because I was feeling quite stressed and pressured about that because I had a deadline to hit, I then decided that my daughter's double wardrobe needed completely emptying out and sorting into colours, and lots of things tried on to see whether they fitted her or not, because that was a massive priority of mine on top of everything else that I had to do, wasn't it? No. And yet I allowed myself to get worried by stuff that didn't matter and put off the stuff that did because I was feeling under pressure. So what I want you to think about when we're packing the rucksack is, what is the rice that you need to stop doing? What are some of the habits that you have that don't serve you, like watching TV instead of getting on with the work that you need to do? Because you will have, and I want you to identify these as part of your homework, you will have a number of rocks in your life that you have to give your full focus to. So, for example, I have work is a key rock for me. I have children, 2 of them, that I need to take good care of, and they need my input and my attention and my care. I have a gorgeous husband and he and I are very together, spend lots of time with each other, and like to love each other fully. And so he is a key principal rock for me. I have my health and well-being, which takes up lots of time and lots of effort every week with exercising and eating well. So that's a key rock for me. I also have now, as part of the intentions that I'm setting moving forward, self-development. Self-development is always a big rock for me, but I'm starting Cambridge University in October 2020. And so for the next year, this is going to be a huge focus. So it has to be rock-sized because it's going to be taking 20 hours of my week every week. So I have all of those rocks. What I also have, and you'll have this too, is lots of pebbles. I'm so glad that we painted these in lockdown as a little activity. But I've got lots of these pebbles, pebble-sized things that I need to get done. So this might be doing the school run every day. It might be, writing a blog. It might be having some time to write my book. It might be going to do an activity that I wouldn't normally do. It might be telephone calls with friends. We have these pebble-sized activities that we also have to fit into our life every day. Cleaning the house, cooking the dinner, all of these things. Now the challenge is, if your jar of time is filled up with all the small stuff, by the time you try and fit the rocks in and a few of the pebbles, you're full. And I haven't got my self-development rock in there, and I haven't got my husband rock in there, and therefore I'm not making progress on my self-development, and my relationship is going down the pan. Sound familiar? We haven't got space for all of that rice. So let's try it another way. Let's think about this another way. I'm just going to make a bit of noise. It's like Blue Peter, isn't it? While I get my pebbles and rocks back out of the rice jar. Bear with me, caller. Okay, right. Empty jar represents your time. Let's have a think about this another way. I'm going to put in there my work rock. I'm going to put in there my children. I'm going to put in there my gorgeous husband. I'm going to put in there my health and well-being. I'm going to put in there the self-development. They're all in there. They fit because I have all of the time that I need to get these things done if I prioritize accordingly. So one of my new intentions has space within my jar. I also have space for a whole heap of pebble stuff. And so do you. I can fit loads of little tasks in there. So when I'm telling myself I don't have time to write the book, that's a nonsense. And because I'm a human being and so are you, I also have time for some of the small stuff. But I prioritize the small stuff around the things that are most important. So it isn't my main priority. It comes after, and I pretty much halve it because I don't have time for it in the same way that I do when I make small stuff the priority. So what I want you to get very clear about as part of your homework is, what are your rocks? And you might have 5 of them, maybe 6. And what are your pebbles? So what are the little things that you have to do? Can you outsource some of those pebbles? So for example, cleaning would be a pebble. I choose to outsource my cleaning because I would rather pay for somebody to do that than me spend 5 hours a week cleaning the house. That frees me up to do things that are more valuable. And in the way that I work, that's a good investment. I recognize that it isn't accessible to everyone, but it's a good investment for me. Things like emptying the dishwasher, I outsource to my children. And that's how they earn their pocket money, so that I'm not spending 5-10 minutes every day emptying the dishwasher. Have a think about your pebbles and your rocks, write down what they are, and then have a think about the small stuff and what can you let go of. And then, of course, you need to think about your own goals, your own intentions. And it was just typical now, I've lost the sheet that I wanted to show you. Honestly, so unprofessional, Angela Cox. Here it is. My intention sheet. What I want you to think about is how many of these, as part of Reboot Camp, you are going to set yourself. And it's really important that you are careful about setting your intentions. So we move aside the make excuses, I don't make excuses principle, and the I am motivated principle. And I want you to just for a moment get realistic, because when you feel motivated and you're not making excuses, it's very easy to overdo this. But you have to have it in balance with the pebbles and the rocks already in your life. And so if one of the intentions that you want to set, for example, is to run a marathon, that's a rock-sized intention in my view, because the amount of training that takes each week, the amount of time that you would need to give to that would be rock-sized. For some people, writing a book will be rock-sized, and there have been times in my life when I wrote Enough, for example. Enough was a rock and I gave it so much time and wrote it relatively quickly. The latest book that I'm working on has become a pebble because I've got so many other priorities at the moment. I cannot give it 20 hours a week, so I'm probably working a couple of hours a week on the book just now. And then there are times when it will become rock-sized again. So if the goal that you're planning on taking on is a rock, you might think about just having one of those written on your intention sheets. If it's, things like I'm going to drink more water, that would be a pebble-sized intention. And so you might have 2 or 3 of those on there. And we're going to talk about how you then implement those, because we don't want to set off and do all of them at once. But, really think about what's already in your jar every day, and then what you're going to add to it through this Reboot Camp. And is that feasible? Is that doable? And if it's pebble size, you might have 2 or 3. If it's rock sized, then stick with 1. And then you are setting yourself up for success. So I want you to go and do that exercise. Figure out your pebbles, figure out your rocks, add in your new intentions, which will come from the sheet that you filled in on day 1, which said, what do I want to keep? And then also, what do I want to add new into my scenario? Those things should give you clues as to what your intentions are going to be. And then once you've written your intention down, I want you to break it down into first steps. So for example, if one of your intentions is to drink more water, to use the example from before, how are you going to actually make that happen? So it's things like, I'm going to go and buy a new water container, which is a ½ litre. And then I need to make sure that I drink 6 of those every day. So I'm going to have a tracker on my phone or on the fridge door that I can tick off every time I do a ½ litre. I'm going to set an alarm in my phone that rings every 2 hours to make sure that I have drunk that ½ litre. And you're going to put these things in place. If it's to exercise every morning for 20 minutes, it might be that you start to set an alarm, that when the alarm goes off, your kit is already on the floor next to the bed so that you get up and put the kit on. You might have a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or a I am motivated affirmation that makes you get out of bed rather than roll back over again. You might have the YouTube channel already loaded onto your phone so that it's all ready so that you can overcome the excuses. Think about, what do you need to do to make it happen? If it's writing a book, you might say, I'm going to dedicate half an hour every morning by getting up earlier and targeting writing 500 words. And then every 2 weeks, I'm going to have a day where I read over what I've done and bring it all together. And then I'll start another batch of time. But your intention or your goal is always breakdownable, as I call it. And it's very important that you do break it down, because when you set a goal that is perceived by your subconscious as being too big, it panics. And it will try to sabotage you because there'll be a fear of failure built in. And so rather than focus on the big goal, you just want to focus on what's the first step that I need to take, and then what's the next step, and then what's the next step. So drinking 3 litres of water every day becomes, I just need to listen for the next alarm and drink half a litre, rather than I need to drink 3 litres today. I need to listen for the next alarm and drink half a litre. Much more doable. So this evening and tomorrow, I want you to figure out rock, paper. I keep saying rocks and paper. That's another game entirely. I want you to figure out your rocks, your pebbles and your rice. Get clear about what's already on your plate. Then decide on your intentions and think about what are the first steps. And then join me in the next session and we can go deeper into how we're going to bring these things to life and get you to the top of that mountain, get you to the outcome of your goal. If you haven't downloaded the Power Package, I would deeply suggest that you do. It's $19.99. It gives you 3 hypnotic recordings that support our key principles of the Reboot Camp. They support the I am motivated, the no excuses, and the bounce forward. They will really help your subconscious mind to support you in the pursuit of this journey. So go and get those now and start listening to them, because they really will help. Take good care, and I'll see you in the next unit.